she explained during my termination that my methods were too outdated and no longer aligned with the company's new direction. "We need leadership with a digital mindset," she emphasized. "Your approach is too conventional compared to our vision." Her cold handshake as I stood up to leave marked the end of a long chapter in my career. My name is Garrett Walsh. For 15 years, I was responsible for overseeing the sales division in the Midwest for Oak and Light Publishing, where I not only managed but built a team from the ground up that I'm immensely proud of. Under my leadership, the Midwest region became the company's primary revenue driver. And all I used were strong relationships, face-to-face meetings, and a deep understanding of the unique needs of each publisher, not sophisticated software or complex algorithms. Last year, my division generated 60% of the company's revenue. But it seemed the executive team wasn't aware of this until the quarterly reports landed on their desks. Things began to shift when Veronica Bennett took over as CEO just 6 months ago. She arrived with expensive suits and meetings full of PowerPoint presentations, accompanied by consultants who seemed to have never heard of traditional publishing. Every meeting became a discussion about digital transformation, disrupting the industry, and the need to break away from the old publishing model. The board was impressed with her vision. Even though she had no prior experience in publishing before joining the company, she had worked for a tech firm in San Francisco. I kept my composure, continued to produce results, but I couldn't shake the feeling of change in the air, especially when Veronica's gaze fell on me during leadership meetings. She looked at me as though I were a relic of the past that the company was eager to leave behind. Despite being the only senior director who still kept a physical calendar and met clients in person instead of scheduling Zoom calls, I felt like I was being pushed out of an era. That feeling intensified when Jason, her assistant, came into my office on Monday morning. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there for a moment, his face showing tension as if he was trying to figure out how to say something important but didn't know where to begin. "Can I help you with something?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Veronica wants to see you," he said, his face tense. "She has something important to discuss." When I walked into the room, Veronica was sitting at the table, her laptop open with a complex chart on the screen. "Garrett, I think we need to have a serious conversation," she started, her voice calm but decisive. I couldn't predict what would happen, but I felt like something big was coming my way. She had made her decision, and I was just a part of the big shift she was driving. The whole company was turning in a direction I wasn't ready to accept. She wasn't just looking to change strategy, she was looking to dismantle everything I had built over the last 15 years. And in that moment, I realized it wasn't just a typical termination. Jason informed me that Veronica would like to meet with me in the executive boardroom at 2 p.m. I thanked him and returned to my conversation with Franklin Press, our most important client. We were in the final stages of negotiating a 5-year contract extension worth $12 million, a deal that had been made possible through my regular quarterly dinners with Thomas Franklin over the past decade. Since Veronica's arrival, the boardroom had been transformed. The traditional conference table had been replaced with a massive digital display, minimalist furniture, and transparent glass walls. 3 people were waiting for me when I entered. Jason, Veronica, and an unfamiliar individual from Human Resources whom I couldn't place. I knew what was coming even before she spoke. She sat with her hands clasped on the table and began. "Garrett, I want to express my gratitude for everything you've accomplished for Oak and Light. However," she continued, "we have decided to take the company in a different direction with regard to leadership." As she spoke about how my methods were outdated and how they needed someone more aligned with their digital-first approach, I remained silent. She was careful not to say outright that they needed someone younger, but it was implied. I thanked her for the opportunity, shook her hand, and left without protest. A 15-minute meeting marked the end of 15 years of collaboration. What she didn't realize was that trust in the publishing world wasn't built through algorithms or email campaigns, especially not with the long-established houses that made up 80% of our business. As the rest of the staff was at lunch, I took my time to organize my desk. I moved with quiet dignity, no commotion, no goodbyes. Yet, when I reached my car, I sat there for a long while, staring at my smartphone. Thomas Franklin had already received 3 missed messages from me. I had started my career at Oakenlight when it was still known as Midwestern Literary Partners. Back then, it was a modest operation with just 20 employees and a small number of regional clients. I had transitioned from Heritage Works after they were acquired by one of the major New York publishing houses. I left behind a 6-figure salary and a corner office because I was disillusioned with the direction the industry was heading under corporate publishing. Robert Oakenlight personally hired me. He had made it clear from the start that we didn't need someone who was skilled in numbers. What we needed was someone who understood that books are still created by people who care about the content between the covers. For the first 5 years, I built the division from scratch. I put 70,000 miles on my car, visiting every independent publisher between Ohio and Nebraska. I knew their spouses' names, their children's birthdays. I attended retirement parties, funerals, and weddings. It wasn't because it was strategic, it was just who we were. By the time Robert retired and his son William took over, we had grown by 400%. William understood the business, though he was more focused on numbers than his father. He let me run things my way. William resisted the board's push to bring in external leadership to modernize operations 3 years ago. But when he passed away last year at the age of 58, there was no one left to defend the traditional ways of working. The cracks had begun to show even before Veronica joined. The term, antiquated, started cropping up regularly in board meetings. There were questions about why our team hadn't adopted CRM optimization or utilized social media. Jacob, my assistant director, whom I had been grooming to take over, began receiving invitations to strategy meetings I wasn't included in. Uncomfortable with his new role as the bearer of bad news, he'd report back to me. 6 months ago, he told me they were discussing restructuring. They were planning to establish a digital sales team, separate from traditional channels. I should have seen it coming. I should have noticed when they hired 3 new digital engagement specialists and placed them on my team without consulting me, or when they started moving my long-standing clients over to the new team without any explanation. Thomas Franklin had called me personally when they took control of his account. Today, Thomas called me to inform me that a young man had reached out to him. The new account manager, he said, was appointed to take over my clients. The reason? They were simplifying their consumer interface, or some other corporate jargon. "Garrett, what's going on over there?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. I told him it was just a matter of reorganization. No need to worry. But honestly, I was worried. I couldn't fight back because I didn't even understand the weapons being used against me. The morning after my termination, I sat in my home office, staring at my phone. 17 missed calls. 32 text messages. 6 marked as urgent. All of them from clients and industry contacts who had already heard the news. I hadn't told anyone yet. Not even Catherine, who was visiting our daughter in Columbus. At first, I wanted to figure things out on my own. The call that finally made me pick up came from Thomas Franklin. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "What's happened?" he demanded. I gave him the corporate line, repeating that they were taking the company in a new direction. "That's not true," he said. Thomas spat. "For most of us, you are that company. Do they understand that?" he pressed. I didn't answer. "I saw that guy yesterday," he continued. "He spent 40 minutes showing me engagement metrics and analytics, none of which were relevant. Not once did he ask about our new historical fiction imprint, the one I told you about, the one that could make or break us this year." I closed my eyes, overwhelmed by a sudden wave of exhaustion that wasn't tied to sleep. "Thomas, they'll figure it out," I said weakly. He shook his head. No, they won't. People like that don't care about what matters. They just push their system and expect everyone else to conform. I opened my laptop and reviewed the email from OakenLight HR detailing my severance package. 6 months of salary. Health insurance for 90 days. A non-disparagement clause. Additionally, I was prohibited from collaborating with any of our clients for a period of 1 year by a non-compete agreement. I nearly burst out laughing. They believed that they could legally prevent the continuation of relationships that had been in place for decades with the help of a single document. Once more, my telephone rang. This time, Eleanor Jenkins from Riverstone Press. An additional significant client. An additional friendship that has been established through years of mutual trust. When I responded, she stated, "I heard what happened. It is their misfortune. Please contact me when you are prepared to discuss the next steps." By the evening, I had received correspondence from 12 significant clients, which accounted for more than 40% of OakenLight's annual revenue. All conveying the same sentiment. Loyalty to me, rather than to the organization in which I would no longer be employed. I sat in my backyard as the sun began to set, nursing a bourbon and contemplating an idea that had originated as a small germ that morning but had expanded with each conversation. They had dismissed me due to the fact that my methodologies did not align with their innovative digital strategy. Due to my preference for cultivating relationships over conducting data analysis. As a result of the presence of handwritten notes in my client journal, rather than CRM entries. However, what if those antiquated methodologies were precisely what those consumers valued? What if the very thing that Veronica Bennett perceived as my vulnerability was actually my greatest strength? I summoned my counsel, Benjamin Weiss, via telephone. "Ben, I require your assistance in reviewing a matter. A non-compete clause. Did they allow you to depart?" he inquired, taken aback. "Yes, they did. Additionally, I believe that it may be the most advantageous event that has ever transpired in my life. I harbor no desire for retribution. I merely desired to continue with my previous behavior, assisting publishers in establishing connections with the appropriate partners. And if OakenLight no longer regarded that service as valuable, there were numerous others who did. This was the first time since the termination meeting that I had slept soundly that night. Benjamin and I convened in his downtown office 2 weeks subsequent to my termination. He had perused my non-compete agreement and informed me of unexpected developments. He passed the document across his desk, stating that it is essentially unenforceable. They committed an essential error. The scope is excessively broad, the duration is excessively lengthy, and most importantly, they are unable to deter you from utilizing general knowledge and skills in your field. Is it possible for me to establish my own consulting firm? I inquired. Are you capable of doing so? Benjamin acknowledged. However, there is a caveat. They will continue to file a lawsuit against you if you make an attempt. They have the potential to make the process costly and distressing, even if they inevitably lose. I gave this some thought. OakenLight had a board that was unafraid to employ its substantial financial resources in response to a perceived threat. What if I refrained from actively contacting any clients? I inquired. What if I simply become available? Benjamin grinned. That is an entirely distinct narrative. The following day, I submitted the necessary documents to establish Walsh Publishing Consultants. No outreach campaign, no marketing materials, and no website. A legal entity that is capable of accepting payments and offering services. Thomas Franklin contacted me 3 days later. He stated without preamble, "I have heard that you have established your business." I responded that news disseminates rapidly. In this industry? Similar to a bushfire. I require assistance with our winter catalog strategy. The new team at OakenLight is encouraging us to pursue academic markets, However, my intuition dictates that we should further invest in our historical series. I require an individual who comprehends both the data and the readers. Thomas, I am still in the process of determining my subsequent actions. He countered that the cost of 2 months of strategic guidance was $15,000. There is no direct competition with OakenLight's services. Rather, they assist us in making informed decisions. It was a generous offer that was meticulously crafted to prevent any direct conflict with my non-compete agreement. However, I continued to vacillate. I must reflect on the matter, Thomas advised. Do not give it too much thought. Decisions will be rendered next week. After concluding our conversation, I received an unexpected telephone call from Jacob, my erstwhile assistant director. May we convene? He inquired, his voice becoming subdued. I am not present at the office. A tranquil location. A small coffee establishment located near Eagle Creek Park, which is situated far from the publishing scene in downtown, was the consensus. Upon his arrival, Jacob appeared anxious, frequently examining his shoulder. It is not good, he stated after we had obtained a corner table. I was elevated to your position, but I am merely a symbolic representative. The new digital team is responsible for making all of the genuine decisions. I replied. That is not unexpected. No, you are not comprehending the situation. They are meticulously disassembling all of the structures you have constructed. All of your significant accounts have been transferred to the digital team. The elder sales representatives are unable to navigate the mandatory CRM system that is being implemented. 3 individuals have already resigned. While maintaining an expression of neutrality, I sip from my coffee. Additionally, what about the clients? I inquired. Before leaning in, Jacob once more peered around. They are incensed. Riverstone is on the brink of walking. In the past week, Thomas Franklin has failed to respond to telephone inquiries. The quarterly projections are calamitous. Additionally, what about Veronica? Directing blame toward the transition. Declaring that it is anticipated that there will be turbulence. He hesitated. However, there is more. They are monitoring you. Yesterday, legal representatives convened to discuss your non-compete agreement. They are apprehensive that you may attempt to steal clients. I now comprehended his paranoia. He was jeopardizing his new position in order to warn me. Jacob, I appreciate your informing me of this. He nodded before sliding an envelope across the table. Contact information for clients. Revised. With personal email addresses and cell phone numbers. He rose to depart. I did not provide you with this item, and we did not have the opportunity to meet today. I sat for an extended period of time, lazily turning the envelope in my palms, following his departure. The utilization of this information would be precisely what OakenLight feared. Additionally, it was anticipated. It would serve as a basis for legal action against me. Possibly even against Jacob. They would construct a trap in anticipation of my subsequent actions. As a result, I was compelled to develop an entirely different one. I abandoned the envelope on the table. Untouched. Upon my departure. A month has elapsed. Despite receiving daily inquiries from publishers seeking assistance, I had not reached out to any OakenLight clients. I respectfully declined, referencing professional obligations. I was not prepared to test the limits of the non-compete, despite the possibility that it was defective. Rather, I concentrated on industry contacts that were not included in OakenLight's client list. Publishers that are small and independent. University presses. Literary agents seeking assistance. Work that would maintain my interest in the field I adored while avoiding legal complications. It was then that I received the unexpected invitation. Harold Blackwood, the chairperson of OakenLight's board, requested a private meeting. I am not present at the office. at his downtown establishment. I accepted primarily out of curiosity. The Indianapolis Gentlemen's Association was characterized by its dark wood and murmured conversations. Harold, who was 70 years old and had silver hair, was seated in a private chamber where 2 tumblers of scotch had already been poured. Garrett expressed his gratitude for his attendance by pointing to the chair directly across from him. I can only assume that you are inquiring as to why I desired to meet. The idea occurred to me. He directed one of the glasses toward me. The situation at Oakenlight is not proceeding as anticipated. I took a modest sip without uttering a word. Harold continued, Revenue has declined by 38% this quarter. Client retention has reached its lowest level in the organization's history. The digital initiative that was intended to revolutionize our business model has, in fact, alienated our primary client base. Regrettably, I responded in a neutral manner. Harold conducted an examination of me. You appear unsurprised. Publishing is an enterprise that is based on relationships. It has been consistent throughout history. Consequently, I am acquiring knowledge. He leaned forward. Veronica's stewardship is a matter of concern to the board. Her strategies may have been effective in the technology sector. However, publishing operates differently. Why are you disclosing this information to me? Because we would appreciate your return. In the hierarchy, Veronica is immediately preceding the Chief Revenue Officer. I gazed at him, contemplating the proposition. What is the status of my replacement? Jacob is a kind individual. However, he lacks your industry expertise and client relationships. Additionally, what about Veronica? Would she consent to this arrangement? Harold's countenance became more inflexible. She would have no alternative. The components abruptly aligned. This is not a discussion of the revenue for the current quarter, is it? This has been developing for an extended period. The facade cracked as Harold exhaled. William employed Veronica. Before his illness became unbearable, he made his final significant decision. The board expressed reservations. However, we yielded to him out of respect. We provided her with the opportunity to demonstrate her abilities following his passing. She has not. What about my termination? Did not receive approval from the board. We were informed subsequent to the event, as were numerous other substantial organizational modifications. Sitting back, I now comprehended the complete vision. Veronica had been expelling William's personnel and replacing them with her own. Digital transformation was not the reason for my dismissal. The objective was to eliminate any individual who was loyal to the previous leadership. Harold continued, The offer is generous. The board's complete support to rebuild your team, complete control of sales and client relationships, and a remuneration that is double your previous salary. It was everything I should have desired. Salvation. Might. Protection. I stated that I require time to contemplate. Certainly, but please do not delay. The situation is swiftly deteriorating. I mulled over the conversation in my mind during the vehicle ride home. They had not recently come to the realization that they had made a blunder in terminating my employment. They had been aware of its immorality from the outset, but they had been unable to prevent it. Suddenly, they desired my return, as it was having an impact on their financial performance. And there was an additional element. Harold had not explicitly stated the matter. However, I had comprehended it. They desired me to serve as the hatchet man. To return and deconstruct all that Veronica had constructed, including herself. They rejected me due to my interpersonal abilities. They desired my client list and the loyalty that accompanied it. No, the realization did not provoke me to anger. It provided me with a sense of certainty regarding my subsequent actions. A brief, courteous email was sent to Harold the following morning to decline his offer. Within minutes, his reply was received. An offer to further enhance the compensation bundle. I refrained from responding. I, on the contrary, conducted 3 telephone conversations. The initial recipient was Thomas Franklin. I informed him that I am prepared to engage in a conversation regarding the consulting arrangement. However, I would like to propose an alternative approach. I am attentive, he declared. I will not provide consulting services exclusively for Franklin Press. Rather, I am establishing a collective. A group of independent publishers that collaborate to share market intelligence, distribution channels, and resources. Absence of long-term contracts. Absence of corporate bureaucracy. Publishers are assisting publishers, and I am facilitating the connections. The line was devoid of sound at that time. What is the total number of individuals you have contacted? At present, there is none. You are the initial contact. As a result of my status as your most significant client? I made the correction because I have confidence in your judgment. I will proceed if you believe it is a viable model. If not, I will continue to engage in conventional consulting. Thomas proceeded without hesitation. I am participating. Additionally, I am aware of at least 5 additional individuals who would be similarly inclined. Eleanor Jenkins at Riverstone Press was the recipient of my subsequent telephone call. She not only supported the consortium concept, but she also proposed modifications to the structure, such as a shared digital platform that would provide smaller publishers with the same level of reach as a larger organization without compromising their autonomy. The third call was to Benjamin, my attorney, to verify that the plan would not contravene my non-compete agreement. He confirmed that you are not working for their clients after hearing the specifics. You are establishing a completely new entity that their consumers elect to participate in. It is a legally significant distinction, albeit one that is subtle. Walsh Publishing Consortium had 7 founding members within 2 weeks. All former Oakenlight clients who had either already departed or were intending to do so when their contracts expired. Each individual made a contribution to an operational fund that would provide the necessary infrastructure and my salary. The plan's essence was not merely the establishment of a rival organization. It was the creation of an entity that Oakenlight was unable to effortlessly replicate. A cooperative structure that allows publishers to maintain their independence while leveraging collective resources. I was not designated CEO or granted a prestigious title. I was merely the facilitator, the connector who comprehended the needs of each member and could fulfill them. We leased a modest office space in Broad Ripple, which was situated outside of the downtown business district, where Oakenlight and other corporate publishers were concentrated. I employed 2 staff members, a recent college graduate to manage communications and social media, and a veteran publishing operations manager who had recently retired but was not yet prepared to cease working entirely. The publishing community's tight-knit nature facilitated the rapid dissemination of information. 3 additional publishers had joined the consortium by the conclusion of the initial month. We were required to relocate to larger offices by the conclusion of the second quarter. I was cautious not to explicitly solicit Oakenlight's clients. It was unnecessary for me to do so. They were attracted to us by the success stories they were hearing and the frustrations they were experiencing with the digital-first approach, which neglected the personal relationships that are the foundation of publishing. In late September, 2 months after our launch, Jacob contacted us on a particular evening. He stated without hesitation, "They are aware of your actions. Veronica is incensed. She is discussing legal action." I responded with composure, "We have not breached any agreements. However, that will not deter her from making an effort." He hesitated. "Tomorrow, there will be a board meeting. Quarterly outcomes are anticipated to be unpleasant." "Jacob, that is no longer my concern." "I am aware, but—" He hesitated. "I believed it was important for you to be informed. Additionally, I would like to inquire whether there is sufficient space for an additional individual at your most recent endeavor. I have hit my limit at this juncture." I beamed to myself. Everything was proceeding as I had anticipated. I did not pursue revenge. Rather, I comprehended the industry in a manner that Veronica would never have. I instructed him to visit the office tomorrow. We will converse. The narrative that numbers never deceive about was conveyed during the quarterly earnings call in October. According to Oakenlight Publishing, revenue decreased by 45% in the same quarter as the previous year. In a single day, their stock experienced a 17% decline. The call was not listened to by me. Thomas texted me the highlights of the upcoming industry conference in Chicago, while I was in a strategy meeting with 15 consortium members, where we were devising our collective approach. Transitional challenges and market disruption are the primary culprits, according to Veronica. There was no mention of the elephant in the room. Their largest consumers abandoned them. Later that afternoon, my phone sounded with a number that I did not recognize. "Is this Garrett Walsh?" a female voice inquired. "Speaking." Patricia Harrington is a member of the Oakenlight Board of Directors. Her demeanor was formal and abrupt. "We have voted to waive your non-compete agreement, and I am calling to inform you of this. Immediate effect. Additionally, we have granted our legal team the authority to draft a cease and desist letter in response to what we regard as tortious interference with our client relationships." I waited, allowing the silence to gradually lengthen. "Mr. Walsh, do you have any response?" Finally, I asked. "Just one question. Have you engaged in direct communication with your clients?" "Not through satisfaction surveys or account managers." "Sit down with Thomas Franklin or Eleanor Jenkins and inquire about the reasons for their departure." "That is not pertinent to—" I interrupted because it is the sole item that is pertinent. "They refrained from departing due to my initiative. They departed because Oakenlight ceased to prioritize their interests." She stated that the board meeting is still ongoing after a brief pause. "Would you be willing to assist us and provide a direct explanation of your viewpoint?" "I am grateful for the invitation. However, I am currently engaged in my own meeting with 15 publishers who have elected to pursue an alternative course of action." I was under the impression that the call had been terminated due to her prolonged silence. She finally said, "I see," and then hung up. The cease and desist letter was never received. The Indianapolis Star's business section published the headline, "Oakenlight's CEO steps down amid financial turbulence." 3 days later, we relocated to permanent premises in a renovated warehouse in Fountain Square 6 months after the Walsh Publishing Consortium was established. At present, there are 23 publishers who are members of the organization, with a waiting list of others who are interested in joining. We had broadened our scope to encompass tiny and mid-sized publishers in the Midwest, in addition to Indiana. The industry had taken notice. We had been highlighted in the New York Times business section and Publishers Weekly. One headline referred to it as the relationship revolution in publishing. I had not intended to establish a movement. Rather, I sought to safeguard what I was confident was effective. However, on occasion, the conventional methods are resurrected as revolutionary when individuals recall their original significance. Harold Blackwood reached out to you on Tuesday morning. Oakenlight had a new CEO who had been promoted from within and had been with the company for decades. He stated, "We would like to explore the possibility of Oakenlight becoming a member of your consortium." There was no preamble. I beamed to myself. "Harold, that is not the case. We are not recruiting individuals of your stature. It is possible that a partnership will be established at that time." I informed him that I would present it to our leadership council, despite my prior knowledge of the outcome. The publishers who had joined us had done so specifically in order to circumvent the corporate approach that Oakenlight represented. After hanging up, I walked slowly through the open plan office for what might have been the last time. I never had a corner suite or an executive office by choice. My desk sat among the others, just another workspace in a sea of conversations and collaboration. It kept me connected to what mattered. Jacob looked up from his desk, eyes searching mine. All good? He asked quietly. All good. I nodded, managing a faint smile. Oakenlight wants to join the digital consortium now, he quipped, a soft laugh escaping. Full circle, I thought. Later that afternoon, I drove to Eagle Creek Park and sat beside the water, the same spot I used to escape to when the pressure at Oakenlight became too much to carry. But this time, there was nothing left to fix. There was a strange calm in me. I took comfort in knowing that what I built would last. Not because it was cutting edge or trendy, but because it had been rooted in something timeless. In people. In trust earned, not bought. In conversations, not dashboards. Sometimes being shown the door is a gift. Not for the revenge story, but because it forces you to build something that is even more honest than the legacy you leave behind. Something that reflects who you are, not just what you did.